By all means, move at a glacial pace. You know how that thrills me.
Welcome to MsMojo, and today we're unveiling a brand new series where we defend some of film and TV's most misunderstood characters and franchises. On trial today is the Devil Wears Prada's Miranda Priestly. Played by Meryl Streep, this chief fashion editor is set up as an antagonist who inspires fear in everyone around her.
You should have seen the look she gave me. I swear, I thought the flesh was gonna melt off her face.
Yet behind her devilish facade is a deeply intriguing woman whose coldly calculated disposition actually makes a lot of sense. So here's why we all owe Miranda one big apology.
Another disappointment.
The devil's in the details. There's no denying that Miranda is cruel, but by truly investigating the inner workings of her tightly run ship, we're provided plenty of clues about where this wrath stems from. When Anne Hathaway's Andy is applying for a position at Runway magazine, everyone around her reinforces just how sought after an assistant role to Miranda is.
A million girls would kill for this job.
I bet a million girls would kill for that job.
A million girls would kill for that job.
Ironically, it's a job that nearly kills anyone who takes it on. The strict office rules are made glaringly apparent.
You never ask Miranda anything.
Her opinion is the only one that matters.
And we're told about the miserable fates of those who've stepped out of line. There's a manic fervor in the air as employees rush around to set the stage for Miranda's arrival.
She's on her way. Tell everyone.
When she saunters in looking stunningly constructed, nobody around her is ever able to settle. This constant state of high alert and desperate desire to aid the editor-in-chief immediately makes it clear that she's the royal queen bee, and she's the one running the place entirely. We get a glimpse of the culture at the office very soon after entering. When Emily picks apart Andy's appearance, it's an attempt to, firstly, prop herself up in Miranda's eyes, but also to, secondly, erode her identity and commit her to her role as a cog in the high-fashion Miranda machine.
This is foul. Don't let her see it. Go!
There's an unwillingness to divulge any personal information as well, reinforcing a total lack of self beyond Miranda's hive.
You doing anything fun this weekend?
Yes.
In addition, the toxic work-life balance is established as an expected symptom of succeeding at Runway.
My personal life is hanging by a thread, that's all.
Well, join the club. That's what happens when you start doing well at work, darling.
Upon meeting her, we are quickly treated to some of Miranda's devilishly quippy insults.
Details of your incompetence do not interest me.
Please bore someone else with your questions.
This is her superpower throughout the film. Her words, while spoken flippantly, are able to cut deep. It's this disinterested affect as she guts someone before moving on like it never happened that makes her so lethal. If you can scare with just a look in your eyes, you've won.
And Emily?
Yes?
That's all.
Her assistants struggle to keep up with the endless lists of impossible orders that flow from her omniscient tongue. And when Andy is concerningly late, Miranda still values the drip coffees the PA has in tow over her well-being.
There's some reason that my coffee isn't here. Has she died or something?
All this sets Miranda apart by highlighting just how little impact anyone in her orbit can truly have. They exist to service her and keep her on her A-game because they're totally incapable of stepping into her satin pumps themselves.
Truth is, there is no one that can do what I do.
But it also sets Miranda up as a soulless villain who radiates cruelty. Even her baddie underling Emily has adopted this cruelty, using it casually in conversation with Miranda as if it's expected for her minions to be equally vicious.
Human Resources sent her up about the new assistant job, and I was sort of pre-interviewing her for you, but she's hopeless.
Emily bosses Andy around out of fear that she will be on the receiving end of Miranda's ire if Andy falls out of line. This is learned behavior.
I hope you know that this is a very difficult job, for which you are totally wrong, and if you mess up, my head is on the chopping block.
In this video, we want to investigate beyond how this cycle of abuse operates, and instead understand how and why it came to be. The Devil's Origin. Understanding the vicious and frankly sexist world that creates Runway's nasty career women may not totally justify the way Miranda behaves, but it does explain it. In Miranda's defense, the chances of her being a good girl in the fashion world were next to none. We don't get to see much of Miranda's backstory, but we can see the way this environment molds women into a militant army of evil clones by following Andy's journey. After being judged for choosing corn chowder at lunch, Andy refuses a grilled cheese later that evening.
I'm not even hungry anymore.
What?
That is why those girls are so skinny.
Afterwards, when she receives a makeover consisting of Dolce, Chanel, and Manolo Blahniks, her confidence skyrockets and her demeanor shifts completely. Now that she's accepted by her peers, she completely abandons her former principles, now realizing the tremendous significance of what she's become part of. Like Emily, Andy has also taken up Miranda's blunt and witty way of speaking.
Did she say why?
Yes. Yeah, she explained every detail of her decision-making. And then we brushed each other's hair and gabbed about American Idol.
I see your point.
Her new behavior results in a breakup with her normie, beer-chugging boyfriend Nate. It's no surprise that the Miranda effect is so strong. After all, her colleagues are trained to observe every detail of her mannerisms, from a shake of the head to the pursing of her lips. As we witness this malevolent persona be passed down from Miranda to Emily to Andy, it becomes apparent that this pattern must have started somewhere. Does it necessarily mean it started with Miranda? We think there's reason to believe that she too followed a similar trajectory, from the bright-eyed young hopeful to ruthlessly jaded industry woman. And if we can forgive Emily and Andy for adopting these wicked traits, then why should Miranda be the outlier? The evidence for this theory is best observed in Miranda's dynamic with Andy. Initially, her interest in Andy is shocking, considering how high her standards are. She acknowledges that Andy has no sense of style and no experience in the fashion world. Though after surrounding herself with a fleet of subordinate mini Mirandas, Andy actually provides something fresh. She admittedly doesn't know who Miranda is, doesn't read Runway, and has no sense of office decorum. This change in pace seems to be the very thing that lands her the job.
I said to myself, go ahead. Take a chance. Hire the smart fat girl.
Andy's refusal to bow to Miranda gives the head honcho a strange sense of excitement too. She's practically giddy when Andy corrects her in front of her colleagues. Is it too much to believe it's perhaps something Miranda once did herself in order to get where she is now? There's also the possibility that Andy reminds Miranda of someone she once was before she became so cutthroat, naive, green in the industry, and not yet so bankrupt of niceties.
I see a great deal of myself in you.
For such a devilish character, Miranda's given the last name Priestly, implying that she's the head of this fashion church she's running. To her credit, she's operating an incredibly well-oiled machine.
She's just doing her job. Don't you know that you were working at the place that published some of the greatest artists of the century?
Miranda educates Andy on the meaning of the color cerulean and informs her how the clothing she refers to as a pile of stuff has been meticulously crafted in a painstakingly thoughtful process from ideation to rack. After all, Runway is a purveyor of culture, launching ideas and influencing fashion around the globe. And it's all helmed by the mogul Miranda herself. Understanding just how Miranda came to be the wildly successful Devil Who Wears Prada requires some introspection on her psyche, though. Just a hint, it's not because she was born ruthless, but because she understands the game women in her space are forced to play. Although Miranda appears to have it all together on the surface, we're willing to bet there's a deeply vulnerable and hurt woman hiding inside. She isn't the end-all be-all of the fashion world. She reports to others too, accountable to a host of wealthy men.
And I knew what everyone in that restaurant was thinking. There he is, waiting for her again.
It's implied that there's limited space for women at the top, both in the fashion industry and in other spheres.
Also, I'm pulling the Tubin piece on the Supreme Court woman.
So in order to make her mark, to compete with the boys, a woman would need to shed her more feminine qualities. Miranda's short haircut and predator-like costuming are very intentional in this regard. This also means putting her career above family and romantic prospects.
Career obsessed. Snow Queen drives away another Mr. Priestly.
Interestingly, she refers to her latest ex-husband as Mr. Priestly, meaning her surname takes precedence as the patriarchal breadwinner. Whether or not the people she answers to grant her respect, Miranda has certainly found a way to give it to herself.
Okay, she's tough, but if Miranda were a man, no one would notice anything about her except how great she is at her job.
Like those on the receiving end of her pithy insults, she's also forced to compartmentalize whatever troubles she's experiencing and get back to work. This masculine approach to business may serve Miranda in this stage of her career, but she had to fight tooth and nail to get there. Again, while we never see that early version of Miranda, the way women have to step on each other for that rare seat at the top is made apparent in the competition between Miranda's assistants, Emily and Andy. As Andy comes into her own and excels at her job, others refer to her as Andrea. At the same time, Emily begins to falter, and as a result is overlooked and regarded as M. It's as if these nicknames during different parts of their arcs makes them seem more childlike or flippant, and like they don't belong in this more serious world. Ultimately, there's only space for one of them on the Paris trip, and that invite is granted to Andy, who chooses to oust Emily and take her place.
You want this life? Those choices are necessary.
Because we experience the story primarily through the eyes of protagonist Andy, Miranda is largely portrayed as the big bad. Through this lens, it's easy to write her off as a villain on first viewing. When all is said and done, however, Miranda's characteristics are not merely a careless choice, but a necessary set of traits she was forced to assume in order to survive a sexist fashion world, one that forces women to shrink their size and squeeze themselves into the latest trending outfits that determine their beauty and value.
Well, I'm on this new diet. It's very effective. Well, I don't eat anything.
Miranda's ego is not a whimsically reckless construction, but a self-defense mechanism serving as the logical conclusion to everything that shaped her. As the film comes to a close, we discover that Miranda's boss, Irv, has elected to replace her with a new editor-in-chief, because
Jacqueline's a lot younger than Miranda. She has a fresher take on things.
woof. If that doesn't hammer home the message, are all the older men at the top also being replaced, or are they seen as wise and irreplaceable? Though Miranda does manage to keep her job, and Jacqueline is appointed the head of Holt, she lets Andy know that she's aware of much more than she necessarily lets on.
I've known what was happening for quite some time.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. The defense of Miranda Priestly is simple. Miranda is not evil for the sake of being evil. She's the victim of a deeply misogynistic time, and her actions are the product of a world she inherited. Is the solution to rip up the old unjust system and create a new one? Yes. Can Miranda do that all by herself? We wouldn't put it past her to try. But what's more likely is that she's priming these young women to play the game properly so that they can one day seize their own seat at this male-dominated table, and just maybe change the game from within. So what's your verdict? Is Miranda guilty of all her wicked sins, or does the ultimate culpability of this story's tragedies lie elsewhere? Let us know in the comments. Check out this other recent clip from MsMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.